Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you happen to be watching this. I hope you're all having a wonderful day and looking forward to a good week of dealing with comic book superheroes. This presentation is about what is a superhero and how can we know. Please remember, I am not a professional YouTuber, and there is no way that I'm going to get through this without stammering, stuttering, making all sorts of little verbal tics. I apologize in advance. And I hope you understand that as I go through this, if my cat jumps on me, if the neighbor starts mowing the lawn, if any of those things happen, you will hear the reaction because I'm going to be doing this in one take. Again, I apologize for any problems that might cause. Let's begin with the idea of what is a superhero and how can we know. I want to begin also by talking about the fact that borrowed images, quoted text, are used for educational purposes. This is not a monetary situation. I'm not trying to make money. And I believe I'm following as good of practices as I can to give credit as we go through the presentation. I will also try to begin a lot of these with the idea of why bother. In this case, one of the books I'm using discusses the idea that the superhero is a figure who touches literal centrally on the likely future of humans. So all of these people in spandex and chainmail who can fly and leap tall buildings in a single bound and may have fur or whatever all of these people will somehow point to a future that we may likely have. And it strikes me as important to take a look at our possible futures because the present isn't that great, and either the future is going to be better or worse. Also, I think it's important to look at the fact that superheroes allow us to explore our recent past and our contemporary political and social situation and the future. So it's not just the future and the likely futures, it is the past and the present. If you look at heroes who have been created, they deal with America's past. The image of the tri-corner hat that you see popping up on screen and the spirit of 76 appearance that is going on here. Perhaps they take an old figure, Captain America in this case, and turn him into a woman. We certainly get the stereotypical blue eyed, blonde haired American as Captain America. We also deal with our icons, Uncle Sam, the American icon, and the freedom fighters, and those sorts of links are part of superhero lore, superhero books that have been published. We add the name Miss America, what used to be a beauty contest, but the character is contemporary to that beauty contest and perhaps even predates that beauty contest. We have the idea of America Chavez, and we're looking at the current situation in America that is becoming more diverse. And of course, we have that continued diversity with two or three different versions of Captain America. We have Captain America from the 1940s. We have a character who used to be the Falcon becoming Captain America. We have all of these different stars and stripes things that take a look at our recent past, our contemporary situation, and as the previous slide said, have us look towards the future. Second, I think that they make us look at the contradictions. The two photos on screen, and a lot of times I'm going to not reference the photos, they're just going to be there for decorative purposes. But in this case, there was a set of comic books called Amalgam, and they merged characters from the Marvel and DC lines. And so you see the Superman with the big S on the shield with the red briefs on the outside, but the Captain America costume and mask, uh, a mixture, a merge, an amalgam. And that was the name of the book or the series of books, an amalgam of Captain America and Superman. You also see an amalgam of Storm from the X-Men and Wonder Woman. And, I'm an old man. I said that in the introductory presentation. But the United States tries to be both new and old. Superheroes try to be both new and old. And as you will go through this class, you will see that there have been Green Lanterns who were based in magic. There have been dozens of different characters called the Flash. All of these things happen, and everybody in subsequent generations has a new view of what the superheroes are. We will get to that in the week one books. And so the superhero reminds us that some way or another, we will merge, we will change, we will adapt, but we will, as the last line on the slide says, we will endure. This perhaps is a bit more romantic, a bit more touchy feely than I would like to be about superheroes. But the fact is, we resonate with the superheroes. They dominated the box office for 10 years or so. They have existed prior to comic books in some form or another with the mythological heroes that we'll talk about in week 3. And I am guessing that they will be around another 100 years from now after all of us are gone. Okay? We resonate. Like I said, it's probably a little cheesy as we go through the darkest night and sunny day, but we resonate. And one of the reasons we resonate is we try to figure out violence, we try to figure out loss, we try to understand who we are. We have wanted to leave places where we are because we're bored silly. Some of you, that's why you came to college. You were bored silly in your small town. We have had our fundamental beliefs of who we are or what the world is challenged. We've had all sorts of burdens tossed on us. We have new responsibilities tossed on us daily, weekly, and we're trying to figure out how to take care of ourselves in new situations. That's what superheroes do. They transform from a normal person or a person with enhanced powers into something more, something heroic. And as they do that, they, like us, change, grow, have to deal with emotional trauma, have to deal with all the things that make us human beings. So let's start with the definition. Coogan says that the definition of the superhero is a heroic character with a universal selfless, pro-social mission who possesses superpowers, extraordinary abilities, or advanced tech, or highly developed physical and mental skills, perhaps mystical, magical abilities. That's the definition. And he goes on to say that there's a superhero identity, there's a code name, Superman, there's a costume, that big red S on the chest, there's, or the Batman logo, whatever, there's powers, there's an origin, that transformation I referenced earlier, there's sometimes dual identities. One of those dual identities is frequently a secret, a closely guarded secret. But let's look at the Hulk. The Hulk, I don't think, has a universal selfless, pro social mission. I don't think that's there. The Hulk likes to run around saying smash or leave me alone. He certainly possesses superpowers, great physical strength. The angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. So technically, if his anger is infinite, his strength should also be infinite. And in certain incarnations of the Hulk, he had Bruce Banner's brain, so he had extraordinary mental skills as well. I'll give him a superhero identity, a code name the Hulk. That's what he is. He's a big hulking thing. He's got that iconic costume with the pants, no shirt. He's got a biography. I don't want to give him the closely guarded secret, the dual identities. Perhaps you could talk about that, but he tries to separate completely and totally the Hulk from Bruce Banner. Perhaps I should put a question mark there, but I'm going to say that the Hulk only matches 2 out of 4. I don't know if that's enough. Later, you'll hear me say that 3 out of 6 ain't bad, so maybe 2 out of 4 should be enough. I don't think the Hulk is there. So let's look at other ways to define or not define superheroes. Clock argues there shouldn't be one. Academics, and I'm not going to call myself an academic even though I'm teaching this college class, should keep it that way. We should have no clear definitions. In short, we should argue about what the definition is, but we should never have a clear one. Batman doesn't have superpowers. That utility belt doesn't quite work. The Fantastic Four don't have secret identities. Wonder Woman is kind of a lot of magic, so's Thor. Superman's an alien, so he should be in science fiction. It strikes me as a valid point that perhaps a lot of the things we define as superheroes could fit in other genres. Kurt Busiek, who writes superhero books, says that it's a philosophical question. In other words, a question for argument rather than a literal question. After all, what is the difference between Batman and James Bond? Batman and James Bond both rely on tech and not necessarily their physical abilities. So we get this idea that superpowers, costume, codename, secret identity, ongoing mission, and milieu. Busiek argues that 3 out of 6 work. He perhaps has gone from philosophical to mathematical to scientific. I'm not sure. He argues 3 out of 6. Meatloaf had 2 out of 3. And he continues to discuss this idea of the milieu. Doctor Strange is a wizard. They belong in fantasies. But because of the Marvel Universe and how the Marvel Universe is set up, he's a superhero. The Hulk would be a monster, but because of how the Marvel Universe is set up, he's a superhero, especially if they're joining a superhero team. And is there a hero versus villain and a superhero versus supervillain story? I'm inclined to take a look at that, but at the same time, I'm not going to give you a definition at the end. One of your assignments gives you the opportunity to write your own definition. Coogan comes back and says kind of the same thing, that they've got enough. They've got enough of the accoutrement to make it all work. And because they have enough of the accoutrement, we're just going to kind of go from there. However, he goes on to argue that perhaps there's a difference between superhero, all right, and superheroes. 2 words. 1 word versus 2. They are heroes who are super, but they are not the superhero. And he lists Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Shadow, Beowulf, and Luke Skywalker. So Buffy belongs in horror, according to Coogan. The Shadow is a pulp vigilante. Beowulf is an epic mythical hero. And Luke Skywalker belongs in science fiction. Busick argues that Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a superhero. She has the powers. She's called the Slayers. She's got the secret identity, the ongoing mission. There's cyborgs, supervillains. She doesn't have a costume, but everything else is standard. And for those of you who are unaware, there were two versions of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There was a movie and the TV version. And in the movie, the character had a stunning fashion sense, which probably could be a superpower. It would help me out a lot. So everything's going to be an argument, which is why one of the options you have is to write your own superhero book or superhero definition. One of the things I want us to look at is the idea that superheroes are more than likely made, but not born. The idea that even if they have all of the six elements or whatever all else, there is a transformation at some point. They change. That change might be trauma, Batman seeing his parents killed, Iron Man in the cave, Wolverine being the subject of experiments, Green Arrow, Daredevil seeing his father beaten and killed and the chemicals splashing on him, the Punisher having his family killed. Perhaps it's luck, Spider-Man surviving a radioactive spider bite, the Fantastic Four just surviving cosmic rays, the Hulk surviving the gamma rays. The X-Men are all born that way, but it's a chance mutation. Or destiny. Buffy was destined to be the Slayer. Wonder Woman was destined to come to the world of man. Superman, Supergirl, there was a destiny to get from Krypton to Earth. And I think we'll leave it there. Transformation may be the key. Transformation may be the most important part of all of this. But the definition is, I think, philosophical. You look at all the elements and you kind of make a philosophical guess as to what all of those elements mean. I hope this was somewhat helpful. And again, if you have questions, shoot me an email, contact me during the Zoom office hours, or if I happen to be in my office in Bede, stop up. But one of your options will be write your own definition of one that includes poison ivy in particular. Everybody have a good one. Talk to you in the next one.